This is Elliot. Elliot is the number one ranked One Piece player in Australia. And Elliot is part of what I like to call the GY Law cult. On Monday, when I was talking with Elliot, he told me that one of the five decks he was considering playing to Sydney Regionals this weekend was Green Yellow Law. And that just absolutely perplexed me. Why is Elliot, a top player, considering playing a deck such as GY Law, which someone like myself, I consider nowhere near one of the top decks. And I'm not a GY Law hater. I love the deck. It is my favorite deck to play at the moment, and because of how much fun it is to play, I will be playing GY Law to every single major event I go to during the OP11 format, and probably going forward to OP12. It is that enjoyable to play. So if I'm willing to play it, and I like to consider myself one of the competitive players we have here in Australia, then why is it crazy to me that someone like Elliot would play this deck? Well, it just comes down to what kind of deck Green Yellow Law is, and the question, is it actually good? And I guess when you come to think of it, is a deck good or not, you tend to look at the statistics. So let's have a look at the One Piece ranked sim data for the first week of OP11. And as you can see, Green Yellow Law is fourth from the bottom, which is kind of crazy for a deck that a top player would consider. And that's it, right? That should be the end of the story. Video's over. The deck's not very good, but it's not, right? You also have to consider what's actually being played at these tournaments. And if you're to look at the recent tournament that happened, I believe it was in America over last weekend, the top three most played decks were GP Luffy, UP Luffy, and Buggy. And if we're to look back at the stats, we have a good matchup into all three of those decks. But we have terrible matchups into the decks which aren't being played. So does that make our deck good? Well, I guess that's where comes the contradiction. If you were to look at different tier lists that different top players have published, you have some putting it in S tier, while others are leaving it down in cope. And honestly, I kind of agree with both of them. And you might be thinking, why is this even a question? We had OP11 in Japan and the deck did virtually nothing. Over the entire 3-month format, the deck had two top 8s, and yes, they were in the last event, so it could have been a later discovery of the format. It wasn't like there was hype for Green Yellow Law in Japan towards the end of the format. It was just, there was hype in English. OP11 was coming. We get the 2-cost beige. Like, this is the time to play GY Law. So what's changed since the Japanese format that means that GY Law can be played here? Or are we just, as a community, getting hyped behind really good content creators hyping us up for a really cool deck? And I guess it's probably a bit of both. There is one thing though we have different from the Japanese format, and that is we got 6 brand new starter decks for our OP11 format. And I mean, none of them were for GY Law, right? There's 2 decks that kind of could have theoretically come close, and I was hoping and waiting for the reveals the entire time, all through like mid-April to when they got revealed late May, and I was hoping for some GY Law cards because I was ready to go down this GY Law path all throughout OP11, and I was just keen, and I was ready, and I was veering to go, and those decks were Green Yellow Yamato and Green Bonnie, and Green Yellow Yamato has nothing. The deck has no support that you could possibly think is worthwhile running in this deck. Has the same color combinations. The Momonosuke is kind of cool and does kind of synergize with the leader, but you already have enough bricks in the deck and doesn't bring something to the deck that a card like Hody Jones doesn't bring. Although it's cool, it's not good enough. And then you had the other deck, which was Bonnie, which was the same color and the same supernova archetype, and you run a lot of the same cards, so surely that had something, right? Bonnie was massively overdue for a boss monster, and Green Yellow Law was kind of just playing a lot of small dudes quickly, and its boss monster was a 7 for 9 that just allowed you to use Leader's ability again for free. So surely we got that boss monster from Bonnie, and we didn't. We got this Lord Beppo, but it doesn't do what the deck wants to do. don't want to be a 7k leader. We have virtually no life. Getting that buff and having that and forcing our opponent to swing over extra cards to get down our life isn't how our deck works. We just have a naturally low life total, so getting plus power doesn't help us too much, and it's not that good. And tapping out means we're not using our leader effect, and all, it's not that good for our deck. So the two decks and the only two color decks that could possibly support our deck don't do anything. Why is there more hype? Why is the deck better than it is Japan? Why can't we just look at the Japanese results and go, there we go. It's just not good. Two tops in the entirety of the format is a terrible deck. Like, even Red Green Law, the older brother, the washed older brother of GY Law, got 12 top cut placements in EVO2, which is a short format in the West, right? So why would we go towards GY Law that has less tops in a longer format? And the answer is kind of funny, and I guess I already talked about it. The meta's changed. The decks that were playing are different from the decks that they were playing, and the biggest proponent of this is Buggy. Buggy is the character that always keeps coming up into power in the One Piece anime. We all know he's useless. From OP09, the deck has been useless, right? There's been no reason to play it. But all of a sudden, he gets Croc and Mihawk on his team, and he's a Yonko again. He's one of the top 4 decks. And just so happens it completely destroys every deck that, beats Green Yellow Law. This gatekeeper of a deck, Buggy, with the 7-cost Buggy promo actually being playable now, means Green Yellow Law is plausible, right? This Buggy, it stops Bella Betty from actually being played. It stops Zoro from actually being played, and it's not only going to drop the massive amount of player base those two decks were going to get, and those players are probably going to go to Buggy because it's a pretty cool deck, but also drops the amount of high-level players playing these decks, because if Buggy is well represented, no high-level player wants a auto loss, and that means that you have a decent chance to outskill lower level players who still stay on Zoro and Bella Betty. So you can go up. But why did Buggy get so good? The 7-cost promo I am talking about has been around since OP10. It was the pre-release promo for OP10, and we saw no Buggy in OP10. Well, that just comes to the support Buggy got. Buggy got absolutely insane support in the star deck. It got 3 4 costs for the deck. You might be thinking, Max, we don't need 4 costs, we need 5 costs. But all those 4 costs, when on the field, have an increased cost of 1. It got Alvida, which is insane consistency. Draw 3, get rid of 2. That's Nami. That is crazy levels of consistency. It also got 2 blockers, which I believe are both 2Ks. One gets power on your opponent's turn, and the other one, when KO, draws a card. But the biggest card that they got was they got the 8-cost Croc Mihawk. The same 2 characters that made Buggy a Yonko in Cross Guild are also combined together in a card to be the reason that Buggy is playable. This 8-cost Croc Mihawk prevents your cards from being removed. It completely neutralizes black as a color, which was Green Yellow Law's other weakness. So if you can't remove Buggy's cards, and Buggy has more cards to play that are theoretically 5 costs, it can play its 10 costs so much quicker, and it actually just has good matchups across the board and is a really cool and good deck. And it just so happens that 8 costs Croc Mihawk just invalidates black as a color, and the 7 cost Buggy promo invalidates red Acro as a choice for tournaments. And those were the 2 decks that just absolutely destroyed Green Yellow Luffy. So now we come here, we're at this contradiction again of, is Green Yellow Law a good deck, and where would I place it in rankings? Well, I mean, I'll place it in an S tier because it has my heart. Green Yellow Law is my favorite deck to play at the moment. But would I recommend it to you, the viewers, at a tournament? Well, it depends what kind of person you are. If you're someone who loves to have fun, I would always recommend Green Yellow Law. Whether you go 0-6 or 6-0, it doesn't matter. You're going to have fun playing Green Yellow Law. But if you're someone who wants to win, then you have to think to yourself, can you beat other people in GP Luffy mirrors, in UP Luffy mirrors? Are you going to be annoyed if you draw your hand of UP Luffy and it has no ram card and all bricks, so you just die? All these other top decks, while they might not have as bad of a matchup spread as GY Lord has, they just get a lot more unplayable hands. So you'll still lose the same amount of games as you will playing GY Law to random decks, but instead of losing to random decks, you're losing to the deck itself. So is GY Law a good deck? Is it the contradiction of meta? And while yes, I agree, it is the contradiction of meta. How can we have a tier deck that loses to all the B and C tier decks but beats all the S tier decks? It doesn't make sense. How can you have something that is better than what's better than it and worse than what's worse than it? It doesn't make sense, but it doesn't have to make sense because it is. And GY Law, you are great. You will always be confusing. You will always be fun. Thank you guys so much for watching.